Hey everybody, I'm Eric Airlock, and this is another talk on Buddhist philosophy, Zen, and Linji's teachings and sermons. Specifically, the true sage or true man of no rank. In the well-known story of the Emperor's New Clothes, con artists lie to the Emperor and say they have made him the finest clothes that only those who deserve their position can see. When the naked sovereign parades in public, a young boy points out that the Emperor is naked underneath their clothing, with Sam the Eagle of the Muppets, breaking everyone else's self-imposed silence. The original story, The Three Impostors, comes from an Islamic story of Spain. The emperor is a sultan. Those who don't deserve their positions are bastards, not entitled to their family's inheritance. And the boy is an African slave, not necessarily a boy, who tells the enraged sultan that he has no position in society, so it doesn't matter if he speaks the truth because he doesn't know who his father is. Because the slave has no rank, he has nothing to lose and is the only one free to speak the truth. As Lewis Carroll said, a cat can look at a king. The Taoist Zhuangzi said things can be stolen, but no one can steal the world from us. And Liezi said that each slave is in some way superior to the emperor. As is my cat over there going to town on the screen door. So, Linji taught his radical Huineng and Mazu style of Chan, what the Japanese call Zen, as the Tang dynasty of China was collapsing. Sort of like the Han was collapsing and in came Buddhism originally. And he suggests many times in his sermons that students do not need to be concerned with conventional Buddhist teachings, rules, or practices. And as mentioned in the last talk, Linji's sermons are the best place for understanding the context of what Zen puzzles mean. And I will leave it at that. Just as Zhuangzi spoke of the true sage of ancient times, who did not fear death or worry about life, the true man, true wise one of ancient times, and Huineng taught that the lowest in rank might be the wisest, Linji spoke of the true sage of no rank, quote unquote, neither above nor beneath anyone. See the last talk about him ribbing his masters, or smacking them in the face. This is often translated as true man. Again, the true wise man, one could say true sage. I do try to keep it to single syllables, to keep it as close to not only the meaning, but the spirit of the text, and how it would be heard by simple people at the time. So, Linji said to the assembly, this mountain monk is telling you that within that lump of red flesh of yours, think red flesh is of course not a very, it's again, red is not, is suggesting your ugly, whole, blood-soaked countenance of yourself. Is a true sage, inside that lump of red flesh of yours, is a true sage of no rank, constantly entering and exiting the openings of your face. Plato and Buddhists and Indian philosophers will tell you specifically about the openings of your face and what they mean, and that's ancient cosmology, physics, doctrine, lawyering. Any of you who haven't figured this out yet, look, look! And he yells, look, look at people, sort of like Mazu calls out people's names and then they turn around and he's like, well, I don't know what you're talking about. He yells, look, look, a lot, as a device. Linji chose to call himself a country monk rather than a cultured master, opening with a simple country lawyer routine, much like Socrates, I do this routine all the time, and tells the ordained monks that they are red flesh lumps with a nameless wise mind moving through their faces all day. This is kind of behavioristic psychology, even. We take the world in through our eyes, ears, nose, and mouth. That's the spirit, that's the energy, that's everything, that's the fire, the light, the everything. And we put our minds out into the world for others primarily through the use of our mouths, as well as the gestures we can make with our other organs. Notice, of course, David Lynch says, video is visual plus audio, and it's like, yes, it is, and then you don't really feel it or smell it, and then, but then you, by just seeing and hearing me alone, you then have all sorts of, hopefully, other people in your life. A monk in the assembly asked Linji, who is the true sage of no rank? Now, this is kind of, why did Bodhidharma come from the West? Okay, who is the Buddha really? Okay, who is this true guy of no rank you're talking about? Now, that's already kind of a stupid setup, isn't it? Because if we say everybody has it in them, he's already said it's coming in and out of your face. So it's like, well, who is this man specifically? Well, what kind of a question is that already? I mean, this maybe, again, we don't know how wise or stupid this guy is, and this is very Zen and Taoist masters earlier. We don't know how smart or stupid this guy is, but he just asked who is it specifically after we've just been told it's everybody. So Linji stands up from the lecture seat, walked over to the monk, grabbed him by his robe. It's sort of like grabbing somebody by the lapels and shaking him a bit and says, "Speak! Speak!" Which he just said, "Look! Look!" And he just yells. And is he saying, "Look at me"? Is he saying, "Look at your fellow monks"? Is he saying, "Look at you through your own eyes at yourself"? How can you unless you have a mirror? And now he grabs you, or this monk, and he says, "Speak." You know, it's like, okay, come out, you jerk. All right, you bastard. You know, speak then, you true sage and no rank. Which, what it sounds like he's doing, and it definitely is an easy interpretation, there is this noble man in all of us. He's like, where is this noble man? He's like, all right, you noble man, come out, you bastard. It's the cops. You know, so he basically is, it sounds like what he's doing, and very much the genius of this, it seems, and I will freely interpret this stuff, and then again, I am happy for it to mean all kinds of things, and it does, and it's mind-opening, so it should. He's now treating the sage of no rank as if it's some jerk inside this monk. Hey, come out already, come on, which is silly behavior because he said it's everybody. And he says it's good, or implies it's good, so now he's going to treat it as if it's something hidden inside this specific monk, and he's going to treat it like it's a jerk, which is funny, because he's flipping on the true sage of no rank freely. Now it's just some jerk, like he ribbed his masters. So he ribs his masters, he slaps, he ribs, the one master slaps Huangbo in the face. He then is saying, the true sage of no rank, hey, come out, you jerk, come on. It seems like he's treating this true sage of no rank that he just praised as the one true Buddhahood. It's amazing. And it's a very Taoist-like Buddhahood. And now he's like, come out, you bastard, come on. Which does seem like it's, the sainthood and everybody. I know the jerk. Let me tell you, this is the guy who's saying kill the Buddha. So of course he's going to treat the true sage in all of us, which is very much Mahayana Buddha nature. That guy, I know that guy. I was on the bus with him. He's a fool. Because that's the routine. That definitely sees now, obviously that could have, in fact, look, speak, speak. Look, speak, speak. This, and that's video plus audio. Video is image plus audio. It's like, yeah, it's look, speak, speak. It can have all sorts of other interesting meanings, and it's situational. I'm really trying to be more careful and cautious and point that out now, just like I do my cats. They're lurking there in the background. I finally got the shelves in a reputable manner here. Again, living and dying should come in proper order, as these guys will say. But if Linji is correct, the rankless sage just exited the monk's mouth and is likely still lurking somewhere behind his eyes. Of course, it's also in and out of all of us, so of course he's playing with it here. Oh, it's in you. Come out, you jerk. The monk asks his superior who the rankless sage is, not getting the common connection, or feigning like he isn't. We don't know, but he can treat you the same way either way. Even if you're playing a jerk, it's fine. He can play one on TV too. So Linji imitates the monk and asks the superior sage coming out of the monk's mouth who he is. Notice also it's like, oh, who is this guy? Come on, out with it, master. Oh, who is this guy? Come out with it, you. It's as if he's imitating the ignorance of the monk itself freely. Because why shouldn't he imitate the behavior of a fool to teach us, like Taoists would with foolish behavior, as a model of what not to do, because it's playful, sibling, egalitarian, equal ribbing. So he is imitating the foolish monk. He is also acting like a jerk whenever he wants to, and acting like the monk is a jerk and he is the monk, which is very much like his sort of origin story, enlightenment, which we covered in the last lecture. So Linji reverses the direction of the question, but remains the master, demands an answer as superior rather than requesting as a subordinate. The monk opened his mouth to speak again, then, and Linji lets go of him now and says, the true sage with no rank. What a dried up piece of crap. And leaves the hall, just walks out of the lecture. Mic drop. So when I was kind of saying, well, clearly how he's treating the guy, yeah, because he then says, this true sage of no rank concept I just told you about, the Buddha inside you all along, what a piece of crap, I'm not paying for this. and he just leaves. It's just thank you. Tip your savior. So some translate the last phrase, funny enough I do know, as a fool of no rank in languages, but a concept guy who tries to read what is in translation as best I can from many different fine, reputable sources. I insist and I swear that last phrase, piece of crap, which I am trying not to use the swears, but this is all, as you can tell, kind of adult content without the swears. So mother bucket, that some translate the last phrase is that it's dried up butt wipe because it's sort of crap stick is what he's saying. Like, hey, what a crap stick. And crap stick actually could mean stick of crap, or it could mean stick you use before, and the Chinese are some of the first, actually, to have wood pulp paper and then give that to Muslims, and Muslims charged high prices via merchants to Europeans until Europeans cracked that code and started making wood pulp paper themselves and figured it out. For a couple of years, the Muslims made a good penny off of Europeans because they had Chinese-style paper and they knew secrets of it and kept it decently, as far as I have read. So, actually, but if you did not have paper, and most people wouldn't because it would be for the wealthy, sometimes you would wipe yourself, apparently, on a stick, and that was a known thing. I'm not going to demonstrate that, nor would I want to try it in the first place. And yeah, so actually, it could be translated as you piece of crap or butt wipe is actually what either this is. And he's talking about the true sage in all of us all along. The power was inside you. The thing that he said is so amazing, it isn't that great that it's in all of us. And that's the talk. Like what I summarized it as, is that's like his first of his sermons here in the collection, which we're working through here. And so you have his life story, which we worked through in the last talk. And then in the Linji, this is the Linji record and the text we're going through before we go through the Joshu and then the Blue Cliff record and the Gateless Gate carefully, which is why we're doing this. You have the origin story of the guy whose house is the one who puts this and these other texts we're going to go through carefully together, which is why we're doing it in this proper order, living and dying in proper order, not at all, as already explained. And so, yeah, his first sermon is, by the way, there's a Buddha coming in and out of your face, and what a piece of crap. Good night, everybody. Again, tip your savior. So, that's incredible. And, by the way, if this sounds, wow, that didn't last long, did it? Kind of like the Russian nihilist Nietzsche was weirded out by. Well, actually, the Song Dynasty nobles, this is some beatnik hippie awesomeness, because Song Dynasty nobles and artist types who like Daoism and prefer it a bit to Confucianism themselves, who are the artsy beatnik types and nobles, were some of the first in the world to enjoy all of this as well as toilet paper. So either way, Linji says the sage is true and then treats the sage as a subordinate, says the sage is some crappy thing to be excluded and ignored. Now the other thing going on here, what we're going to have here throughout Linji's talks is he's going to refer to everybody as beasts, as thieves, as pieces of crap, and as lowly slaves and servants hitching posts for donkeys. All of these things are not only the worst, they're also things we would ignore and tuck out of sight, and that's the Buddha too, and he's putting it in the worst kind of language and way, in ways that really transcend language and culture plenty. Possibly not entirely, but plenty. And this is very much holy foolin' the world over. You can look up the holy fool is a concept that many wrote about 70s and onward. A lot of the material I like is 70s onwards kinds of understandings of a lot of this kind of stuff, which we're still working out plenty, and I hope this shows. But yeah, this is some holy fooling at its finest, and this is the guy whose house is the one who then, they are the ones who make the koan collection literature. We're going to slowly go through the thing that it is, the puzzles of Zen, which people think of when they think of Zen at all. Many people, anyway, unlike the Zen. And hopefully the Zen don't think of Zen much at all, yes? Or think less and less, day by day. A bucket fills drop by drop in the Dhammapada. There are two ways that we can interpret the single wise mind Linji speaks of. A traditional Buddhist way, and we could also interpret this in a modern psychological way. Let's say psychological, whatever that means. If it's all psychology, if your reality is, then that's everything. Just like chemistry or physics or math. Each of these departments underneath the other, apparently, all the way down. To a traditional Buddhist, this cosmos is one conscious mind, and our individual minds are mere pieces of the larger whole. Many would say that this is similar, if not the same thing, as pantheism, the belief that a god-like cosmic consciousness is the world rather than its external cause and designer. Buddhism does, in this way, resemble a pantheistic monotheism, although unlike Christianity and Islam, the other two of the largest cultures in the world, along with Buddhism, collections of cultures, it is not explicitly identified with theism. Muslims in India call Buddhism both pantheist and atheist, neither nicely. To a modern skeptical psychologist, we cannot know that the world is beyond our minds or that it is conscious in some strict sort of way, but we can say, Wittgenstein says we all are a bit the solipsist, but we can say the part of the world we experience is constructed by each of our individual minds altogether, if one looks at it from a psychological perspective. And again, I have psychologists in my family. It is a horrible hereditary condition. I'll thank you not to stare. As the Buddha himself said in the Dhammapada, with our thoughts, we make the world. That's some of the earliest of Buddhist teachings. These monks know some of the core Buddhist texts a little bit. They have time to read it and are told to. When we identify with others, we speak and act as if we share their mind insofar as we share their intentions, making no distinction between themselves and ourselves, between their identities and our own. As Wittgenstein would say, if we do draw a distinction between ourselves and others with our minds and interests, it is only for specific purposes, in specific situations, for ways that our interests may differ from theirs or not. The modern psychologist might suggest that the mind, feelings, and thoughts that a team shares are not a shared experience of underlying cosmic consciousness, but rather the experience internal to the mind. Internal, again, Huineng would say, where's that? Of each individual on the team experience such that it is shared and experienced as shared in that everybody is feeling and thinking like you, and that is the way we feel and think so simply our world and reality. Such that if the soccer team scores a goal, they all share it together in some kind of way, whether or not we believe at all in anything like psychic here meaning mind-ish stuff, of course, in the root of the word. Linji is a traditional Buddhist who likely does have faith that there is a cosmic consciousness coming in and out of the openings of your face, but whether or not you have faith in your face, your original face, for Huineng to Huimeng, again, why did I not need to know I didn't need anything until I went to that guy? Let me tell you. Whether or not you think energy is alive or it cares about you, here again, see Epicurus and Cthulhu, is that we all do, in a certain sense, share mind. One of the central concepts of Zen, one that I like a lot, is that all is mind. That very much is like a psychological view. This is also why in the 60s and 70s a lot of psychologists have been into Buddhism. Because the view all is mind is one that people plenty have. You could say, no pun intended, you're going to have it whether you like it or not. Because you liking it or not is human mind liking things or not. And that's your reality. Feeling you like things, feeling they fit, feeling you don't like things, feeling they don't fit, and how all that works. So if he says Buddha and arhats and sages are hitching posts for donkeys, kill the Buddha, it doesn't feel like all that fits plenty. Feels scandalous. So even if Linji was well versed in modern skeptical psychology, he could still argue with the modern psychologists that we should train ourselves to identify more with the mentality we share than with our own individual selves and how we have our reality. The Buddha taught that when we settle our minds, we can experience the extinction of fear, hate, and greed. Linji taught that if we trust ourselves and others, we share a wiser, deep mind that fulfills us more than our selfish individual interests. And there is a lot in Linji and also Xiaoshu, who I will cover after Linji, these few talks, that suggests you don't actually extinguish the self, which is already implicit in that quote of Bodhidharma I love, that the tallest thing in the cosmos, in the universe, the tallest thing is the self. The widest thing, because the greatest thing, tall is the self, but thus wider, is the mind. All is mind, which means you sort of don't extinguish ego in yourself and others, and that is more fitting with Taoist tricksters. In a certain sense, it's almost like postmodernism to existentialism. Existentialism is sad about the modern world. Postmodernism in the 80s and onward. Cyberpunk apparently actually got released, and a bunch of people are happy about it. I don't care. But Cyberpunk reminds me of the 80s, and that's playful engagement with stupid technology and corporations, and their evil, rather than, oh no, now everything is evil, we're all dying. Again, politics all and issues of everything all aside, is everything dying or is everything staying very much the same, and that's plenty terrible? Well, those are two interestingly different attitudes, and here you definitely have a more Taoist embrace of all the stupid rather than an extinction of all the stupid. And with Joshu, I will get back to the material rather than tangent. I can continue to interconnect these things and do love to. As Joshu says, when the rabbit runs away from him, I like to kill. But he's taken vows not to kill, but he doesn't say that. He's like, I'm a killer. I don't know. I love killing. That kind of stuff. He's on Call of Duty sitting there talking about your relatives. It's like, why would a Buddhist monk say, I like to kill? And he also says, Joshu says, what's the use of escaping or extinguishing fear, greed, or hate? That's stupid. Because if you're going to deal with yourself and tame the tiger, a la Shuangzi, and others all day long, you don't extinguish anything. It's the, as Linji says here, furniture of your house. The self does not go anywhere. That is something very remarkable in Zen Buddhism, that earlier Buddhism talks as if the self is to be extinguished. This is much more Taoist trickster. I argue, and again I'm happy to argue it with people, in my reading of Taoism and then reading the Zen folks reading clearly Taoist texts and then their Zen teachings differing from others, and I am drawing on the teachings of others as well as advancing somewhat my own ideas, but all that's interconnected of course, and I won't get into that now. It definitely seems that they are a la Taoist tricksters. They are accepting that the self and selfishness and stupid is an ever-present part of reality. Like that horn outside. There hasn't been beeping, so now, of the material so much. Now somebody's car alarm has been set off. Selfishness and greed and, you could even say for a biological organism, self-preservation and selfishness is not something to be simply extinguished or simply go away. The car horn hopefully will here in a second. But unlike the extinguishing of the car horn here, is that the self doesn't simply go away. You have problems and issues, and then those sorts of problems and issues remain the furniture of the situation and your interaction with others. It really, you can't kind of get away from that, but you can become wider and wiser with it. And that car horn is going to continue here for another minute or two. But the Buddha teaches that when we settle the mind, there's extinction or extinguishment of fear, hate, and greed. This is known as moksha or samadhi, as taught in earlier Buddhist lectures. But the other name, known as the grunge band, is nirvana, is the extinction of these things and the extinguishing of them. But instead of extinguishing them, what Zen teaches is much more Taoist, because it is Chinese Daoism plus Indian Buddhism, which equals Zen Buddhism in China. And what that teaches is you don't extinguish fear, hate, or greed. You become wider and wiser with them, which is part of the reason why Buddhists and Jains have felt that they can be kind of tricksters and fools the whole world over. But at the same time, oh my God. It should hopefully stop in a minute or two. If that goes on for a full hour, hopefully it runs out of juice. It's changed pitch. It's now kind of a more pleasant note for a while, let's hope. I will unfortunately have to stop this talk. I can keep going. I just don't, yeah. And now in my mind, I'm worried about you guys getting annoyed and me getting annoyed. And the self-centered, I'm worried about your self-centeredness, mine, the Buddha's, and everyone's, aren't I? So, I will unfortunately have to stop this and pause it, but this is actually a good place to pause it, because we're going to be getting into insulting the Buddha. Ha! There we are. As a good friend. I think we might be able to talk for a couple more minutes on all of this. Awesomeness. There we go. So, let's enjoy not the extinction, but the lessening of noise, because noise, and as the Taoist says, noise and music form harmony together. So, basically, that is blessed, yes. It's like kicking the donkey out of the house here with the Jewish folklore. So, Linji taught that if we trust ourselves and others, it's not actually the extinction of it, and then you can see how Joshu, who is a genius guy, Zen master, teaching at the same time in a very Taoist town next door, nearby, either just before or as Linji is doing all of this and giving his sermons, and they meet each other, and there's a story actually interchanged where one goes to meet the other back and forth, and the roles are reversed in two different texts, so it got intermixed and interchanged, almost on purpose. Screwed up. That you don't actually extinguish anything completely. You just deal with it better and wider and wiser, and that is not so shaved head Buddhist monk extinguish everything kind of attitude. That is more of a, well, we play with it and make body sexual jokes and act like we're just full wide wiser people. Which again is noticeable, and they quote Taoist texts as they do it and as they act the Taoist fool. So we can learn to experience the world and our interactions in it as playful fighting between friends, rather than gaining or losing particular positions. We cannot train ourselves to trust shared feelings with mere shared words and concepts, but rather by direct attention to experience, particularly our interaction with each other. And this is why you can walk up and say, kill the Buddha with Linji, because he is ribbing the Buddha as if Buddha is a friend. If you say to yourself, to heck with Jesus, to heck with science, to heck with truth, to heck with philosophy, I think these are a bunch of jerks, you trust it more and you are more in the vein of it. Because that's the better, wiser, wider mind state that the Taoists taught and now the Zen Buddhists teach along with Buddhism. So insulting the Buddha as a good friend. When we insult enemies, we are trying to weaken them in their attempts against our interests. But when we insult friends, we are trying to strengthen them. Their attempts to help us in our interests, as well as their bond of friendship we share. I do remember somebody created a silly meme-ish thing online with an old German woodcut of Jacob wrestling the angel. And it says, stop hitting your, and the angel said unto him, stop hitting yourself, stop hitting yourself. But lo, Jacob could not, for the angel was hitting him with his own hands. Yes, I will turn this cosmos around. I swear, I will come back there. Yes, pantheism. So even the simple, humble dad joke, notice dad jokes are very popular, and I love dad jokes, and I tell terrible jokes all the time. That is a very, somewhat, a bit male attempt to kind of control the situation as simply, we're having a, crack of beer, short male interaction that completely controls and kind of frames the situation in the most playful, play fighting way possible, actually, is a bit of control and power, but the nicest way, in order to toughen people up with the world trying to frame people. I was like that when I got here, I swear. It's a small attempt to toughen up the child against people kind of being invective with stuff, of course, is dad joking, it would seem. And again, I love that, and my family loves that kind of nonsense, but again, that is sort of a power play ever so subtly, isn't it? And again, is it okay to rib people like a self-interested jerk if you're ribbing self-interest itself or not? Linji says that the Buddha himself is no better than a hole in a toilet and should have his head cut off like a criminal, as if he is an unpardonable criminal and a terrible burden to the whole community and is going to be cut out on purpose. Well, what is he telling us we're doing or not by saying, yeah, let's do that? Similarly, Linji says the greatest saints and sages are crap in the toilet, are prisoners rather than free, shackle others rather than free them, and are no better than cheap hired labor. In the same way, Linji mocks monks who revere the great Buddhist teachers as their superiors rather than insult them as they would a close, trusted friend, which is more like how a Taoist treats everything in reality. The tiger in Chuang-Tzu will treat you, the tigers, as their own if you give them some, but not all, but not none. So Linji says, followers of the way, you take the words that come out of the mouths of a bunch of old teachers to be a description of the true way. This is Linji's sermons. You think, this is a most wonderful teacher and friend. I have only the mind of a common mortal. He's saying you're stupid for thinking you're a student, they're the master, they know more than you. You have the whole thing already in you, just pay attention to it. I would never dare try to fathom such greatness. Blind idiots saying these things. You go through life with this kind of understanding, betraying your own two eyes, cringing and faltering like a donkey on an ice road, saying, I would never dare speak of ill of such a good friend. I'd be afraid of making mouth karma. I have to say, as somebody who teaches philosophy, a lot of times I get into situations, and I won't go on and on here, but I have mentioned before, I don't want people to distrust science in ways that cause health concerns at all. And let me say no more, nudge, nudge. At the same time, I have students all the time, I'm like, well, wisdom, loving your fellow person. They're like, well, science figures this kind of thing out. It's like, no, it doesn't. It hasn't since Sumer. It may not in your life for the next 50 years. So what do you think? It's like, well, I wouldn't dare say anything. And a lot of people, I can tell you, a lot of people will say, I wouldn't talk about the brain or human interaction without, science. I didn't say don't know anthropology, I didn't say don't bring in anything under the sun. Hopefully you're well read. But you can think, right? So many people are afraid to talk, whether or not they believe in religion, science, or politics. They'll talk all right, but they won't reason about what they're talking about because they're afraid they'd insult the thing they stand for. That's very real. It's something where I don't want to be anti-science in the slightest. I never have wanted to be. I find myself pushing back on people's understandings of objectivity a lot in the name, well, Nietzsche says, yay, now we're science in the modern nation state. Nothing can go wrong now, right, guys, in the late 1800s? I'm thinking this is humanity, is what Nietzsche says, and that's what Schopenhauer said before him. So it's like, I would never dare speak ill of science and objective truth. Well, guess what? And I have to say as a philosophy guy, to secularize this rather religious talk, if you would never dare speak ill of science or objectivity, I'm not saying you have to believe anything. It's like, oh no, then I believe stupid things. Well, don't do that either then, But it's like, if you wouldn't dare speak about science or labor practices or truth or anything like that, why are you trusting, science and human reason? It is very much like, actually, and again, I do find this to be heretical, dangerous talk, but it is awesome to be able to be free to talk these ways. It is very much like, well, I'm a Catholic or I'm a secular person. I don't dare want to talk smack about the bishops or the scientists or the establishment man, as Berkelian here. And it's like, well, I didn't say rebel against the experts, but can you think and talk about it? The ancient, again, Harjadev of ancient Egypt says talking is the hardest work there is on earth to do. And just being able to talk a little, I would dare never speak ill of such a good friend like the Buddha or Buddhist teachers who are great. I'd be making mouth karma. I'd be making mouth problems in the world, says Linji in, around the year 800 in China. And it's like, yeah, well, around the year 900 more. It's like, yeah, you wouldn't want to talk crap about the powers that be. Well, the powers that be are crap in a toilet. What do you think about that? It's all very much the same. This is, again, some of the hippest thought in China 1,000 years ago. And a lot of times, again, well, I will say, if people tell you the West or the East isn't into freedom or not, that comes and goes a lot in many different dimensions here, such that a lot of people are like, well, I'm a freedom-minded Western person now. Well, culture comes and goes in a lot of ways, and humanity remains very human, such that hopefully you and I can enjoy this, and I'm going to move along with my talk. So Linji says here, more quotes, followers of the way. The really good friend is someone who dares to insult the Buddha. Now that right there is him saying it. He says, I'm not over-interpreting this. As I mentioned, I am obviously interpreting it, but he says the really good friend is someone who dares to insult the Buddha, insult the patriarchs, pass judgment on anyone in the world, throw away the scriptures, huineng, despise those little children, the patriarchs. The tallest thing on earth is the self. The widest thing gets around the self is the mind for Bodhidharma. So, all those little, as high as anything is, bunch of little stupid children, we are apes and children to the gods, says Heraclitus. And in the midst of disagreement and agreement, seek out the real sage. In the midst of the Taoist sage leaves the muddle and confusion as it is. In the midst of disagreement and agreement, of order and chaos, suggests continuous, seeks out the wisdom, the real sage in there somewhere. Speak! Well, of course, the real sage is, where's the real sage here? It's the wider view of the whole. You're not going to find it inside this guy. Hey, it's in this. Where is it in here? That's like looking for math inside the symbol of the number 2. You're never going to find it there. It's in the whole situation. The real sage to be sought out is likely the same true sage of no rank who moves through phases all day, isn't it? When Linji insults the greatest Buddhist teachers, he is using words freely as if he is among familiar friends, much like the overused trope of the long-lost friends who pretend to be sworn enemies in front of the whole frightened bar, but then call off the fight in the last minute, hey, and hug instead. It's an act, both like, hey, you, which is good entertainment and comedy. Linji even ended a sermon with the words, "The world can insult me all it likes," before thanking the monks for standing so long, so thank you humbly, yes, and leaving. The master sits. In a classroom, usually I stand and pace around, the students sit. As mentioned, in traditional Buddhist culture, the master gets to sit. There's no other chairs. He gets the platform and the chair, like a lecture series today, between two ferns. And basically, the people, the monks all stand. Thank you all for standing so long. You can insult me all you like, and then he's out. The world can insult me all it likes, and I'm out, is a very Taoist ending, a sage ending to anything. And I have to say, I have recently, in fact, been enjoying, it is very Taoist trickster, and it does not suggest you want to be the most horrible of human beings, to say, look, this isn't about me, and this isn't about you, is it? You can hate me all you want. It's a very persuasive argument with people, which hopefully is used for better rather than worse, yes? And the Taoist sage would say, you feel that out. Look, doesn't matter to me what you think of me, It's, again, I will get into a Columbo routine, like the beeping again, outside, repetitively. It's like, ma'am, I don't mean to insult you, to tick you off any. I'm just obviously doing that on purpose. And like a bum, the world can insult me all it likes. This isn't about me. I don't care whether you think I'm good or bad. That's, what is it, The Fugitive. It's like, I'll jump. And Tommy Lee Jones is like, I don't care. He's like, no, go ahead and insult the Buddha. No, go ahead and love the Buddha and be an idiot. I don't care. It's like, you can all hate me. I am the cops. It's just, world can insult me all like, it's the Buddhist crap. You can think I'm crap. Hey, buddy, try me, pal, And it's like, that is him trying, at least through these techniques. You can see where he is going with it. Yes? Whether or not you like where he's going with it. So Zhuangzi says, the second Taoist patriarch who says he wants to wriggle like a turtle in the mud rather than rule a kingdom at all with anyone. He says we should not try to stop the world from judging us in insane ways. He says, the monkeys respond with joy and anger no matter what they perceive or see. Let them if they want to. That definitely suggests the Taoist wisdom of, you are not going to extinguish jerkness in the world. Like Marcus Aurelius the Stoic just covered, we have come into this world to work together with all these jerks and co-workers and all these fools. And that basically, no, you don't extinguish jerkness. It is part of the human mind. It plays its part in everything on all different levels. And if you accept it like that, you become far more brilliant with the diamond mind, a la Zen. If all is mind, then jerkness and mud and hair and the chaos is part of reality. It is, as Linji says here soon, the furniture of your house. As is all of that beeping and all of the wood and materials they're unloading and as fixtures across the street. Again, it was like that when I got here, in that it was like that when I woke up this morning again. So yeah, I have been using and playing on that a lot lately, actually, in my own personal stuff. And again, hopefully not in terrible, horrible ways any more than it should be terrible and horrible. Linji would not only let the monkeys chatter away, but have us think of them as friends who may not have any idea how they are helping us, and he would try to tick them off and get them to chatter on purpose, which is kind of like a Taoist. When Linji traveled to the monastery in Hubei, the governor asked for a lecture. This is like Huineng. Bodhidharma goes straight to the emperor, is tossed out of the emperor's place, whether or not that ever happened. Huineng, in the beginning of the Huineng, The local governor is like, please tell us about your brilliance. The government has switched around completely, and that's symbolic, whether or not it is also historical, that they're showing you that. The governor is asking Linji for a lecture. This is the House of Linji presenting Linji as popular in his time, whether or not he was. There's evidence both ways. But now they are establishing Linji as these guys are already powerful. In this text, Linji is somebody who lectures governors here. So after Linji had spoken to the assembly of government officials and monks, the monk Mayu stepped forward and asked, which is the true eye of the thousand-eyed Avalokiteshvara? And Linji asked Mayu the same question and begged him, answer me, which is like the routine earlier. Mayu grabs Linji. This is the monk like Linji. Notice the step up here, literally stepping up onto the platform. Mayu, like Linji, does a Linji, grabs Linji, pulls him down from the lecture seat, and sat in the lecture seat himself. Linji approaches Mayu and says, how do you do? It's like, oh, I'm very reverential. Mayu opened his mouth to answer, but hesitated just for a moment. That is like Shen Xiu of the Huining. Hesitation just for a moment, and also with Taoists of China. You hesitate for a moment, you're not in the way. Linji grabs him, pulls him down from the lecture seat, and sat in it again. One moment. Linji again interrupts the monk who doesn't know what to do, and when put in a position, and he allows him the position. Okay, fine, I can deal with this. Okay, no. But unlike the previous monk who didn't know how to answer at all, Mayu first answered Linji by taking his place, just as Linji took his, which was working for a time there, it seems. Yes, that seems to be what we feel in the interaction. And only hesitated after Linji unexpectedly went along with it. Perhaps Linji sensed that Mayu feared failure. Because he's like, well, how are you doing, good sir? And he's like, and he didn't know how to take the position. He's like, okay, free. And what does he do? Oh, you don't know how to take the position. Let me show you how to take the position. Thunk. Free play with all of that. You can't take I can take the position. Oh, you can take my position. Oh, you can't take my position because you can take my position. Okay, then I'll take my position and I'll retake my position. That's what happened, very much, as well as anything else that happened there. Again, with a lot of this stuff, and I have been advising people a lot with a lot of this interpretation, it isn't that any of this is the final objective interpretation, but if simple things are here that are simple reversals, that's probably intentional. And then, if you stare at it for 10 more years, maybe it can mean plenty more also. That's fine. It definitely seems like there's reversals going on here that are very simple for the average person to understand in ancient China or today. And yeah, technically sort of medieval between ancient and modern times China. But again, that was more their Renaissance and pre-modernity. So perhaps Linji sensed that Mayu feared failure, just as Linji had feared failure at first, second, and third when hit by Huangbo. Well, that's the buzzer there. So that's our time. And that's about 45 here. So, and we're going to keep these to the 40s here. What do we got? Yeah, we are working down through the material slowly here. I knew this would be a series of talks on Linji, and I want to keep it slow and good here because Linji is amazing, and I want to take my time with all of the koan collections because I want to at least, by the end of this semester, get out material on Linji, Xiaoshou, and the Blue Cliff Record and Gateless Gate. I at least want to finish that. And I've given my students until Monday, so I'm going to at least get that done by the weekend. Even though that doesn't give everyone time to view all of that much, and my apologies. Again, there's the buzzer. That's our time, ladies and gentlemen. Buddhas, demons, beasts, everyone. Next time here, we're going to pick up, and I'm going to pick up a little bit later today and be uploading all of this. That we're going to have Linji is going to tell us how we're all demons, beasts, as well as Buddhas, as well as thieves. One of the things that Linji likes to do, Mazu liked to call people's name out, and then when they turn back, be like, what? What are you talking about? We've already had thief yelled out. Linji really likes to grab people and yell, thief, thief, and he seems to interact with Joshu and Puhua, and they seem to all enjoy grabbing people and yelling thief as if you're calling the cops and now they're going to go away and you've ruined their life for a major crime. which is a harsh technique to pull on people, like saying kill the Buddha. So next time we will pick up here with demons, beasts, how we're all demons, beasts, and Buddhas, and criminals. We should all have our heads cut clean off, a la Bataille. So much love and happiness. Again, hopefully we all find terrible and wonderful enlightenment, and I will see ya if I ever see ya.